Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another First Draft Friday. This is episode number 75. I am your host with Authors.ai. My name is Alessandra Torre, and I am joined today by #1 New York Times best-selling author, Lucy Score. Welcome, Lucy. It's so great to have you here. I'm so excited for this topic. And for everyone joining us today we are going to be doing another live author chat. And this one is all about how to add humor to romance and suspense writing. Though really what we're going to be talking about could be applied to really any fiction genre. So I see everyone joining us from YouTube and Facebook. Don't be shy. The comment section is all yours as you go. If you have any questions for Lucy, pop them in the chat. We'll answer as many questions as we can during the next half hour. But without further ado, Lucy, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us just a little bit about what you write?
Hi, guys. I'm Lucy. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I always love to chat with you, Alessandra.
I know. I'm excited.
I am a contemporary romance writer, and I have been writing full-time since 2015. So I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary, which is crazy.
It's crazy. And I love, someone said, Lucy needs no introduction. Also, several comments about loving the new hair, which was the first thing that I said to Lucy, when she came on. It's so great to see everybody here and to have you here. So before we start talking specifically about humor, can you tell us just kind of, how you got started a decade ago? And, and kind of, did you get started immediately writing funny stories or where did you begin?
Well, okay. So I don't think I've really ever talked about this part of my origin story before, but when I was 16, my local newspaper opened up a program for teenagers. And at the time, I wanted to be the next Lois Lane. So I joined.
Who doesn't?
I know, right? I was really, really influenced by The Adventures of Superman with Dean Cain and Lois Lane and Terry Hatcher. I was like, I'm going to be Lois. So I joined this program, and every week we would alternate, like there was a news story, a feature, a column, a music review, some kind of review. And I went crazy for writing humor columns. I was a huge Dave Barry and Irma Bombeck fan. And I just, every time I got to write a column, I was so excited and I could just be my goofy self. And I did that, I think, for about 2 years before I went to college. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that kind of stuck with me. So everything that I've written ever, including like college essays, has an element of humor in it, just because I feel like that's my comfort zone.
Yeah. And you're a funny person by nature.
I'm hilarious.
You are hilarious. So, so when a decade, like where were you in life a decade ago? What was your career path? Were you trying to be, did you go to college to write, or?
I went to college for journalism, which was way more than a decade ago. But 10 years ago, I was working full time as in marketing for a accountant firm, and I wasn't very good at it. So in my nights and weekends, I would escape from this job that I wasn't very good at, and I would write steamy stuff. And finally, one of those, it evolved into my first book, thankfully.
And what was that very first book?
Undercover Love.
Undercover Love.
Yeah, it was originally a novella that I called Cocktails at 7, and it became my first book, Undercover Love, that was published in March of 2015. And then it was a good thing that I went down that path, because in October of 2015, my second book came out and I got fired.
Oh.
Oops. So, I mean, it worked out for the best for everybody, especially my previous employer who got to hire someone who was actually really good at the job. But also it worked out pretty well for me.
And in the, like, did you start looking for another job and then, or that was the moment where you said, I'm gonna give this writing thing a go. I'm gonna do this full time.
I had 24 hours of full on panic because at this point I knew that I was not a good fit for any kind of job that an actual adult could hold down and excel at. So I had this 5-year plan that I was going to save for 5 years until I had 1 year of salary saved up and put in the bank. And I was going to give myself a year trying to support myself as an author. And so that was my plan. I was real excited about that plan. And I was let go the day before my second book came out. And I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, this derails everything. I'm going to have to start working on my resume again. I'm going to have to find another job. But my second book did well enough that in the first month, I actually earned my annual salary. So I was able to stay a full-time author at that point. So I was really excited and very, very happy with how things worked out.
And did those first books have an element of suspense in the mystery? I mean, in the romance?
Both of them did. And I definitely like to weave suspense elements into contemporary romance because I know you write some mystery thriller things as well. And there's something so much fun about weaving in this external conflict. It kind of keeps my brain fresh. Like it's not constantly like, okay, the hero and heroine just had a fight and now they're broken up. It's, no, somebody got kidnapped or
yeah, it puts pressure. I'm the same way. I don't want to say I get bored, but I need, it's much easier to propel the story forward if there is also something else going on other than just, will this couple get back together? Because so often in romance, we kind of know that they will,
Right.
So that takes a lot of the guesswork or the suspense out of it. Someone asked on Facebook, Lynn said, what was the name of your second book?
Pretend You're Mine.
Pretend You're Mine. Yeah.
I see my sister in the comments. Hi, Madison.
Yeah, she said that humor is definitely not a coping mechanism for your family.
Not at all. No.
And we have another question from Facebook. They said, Lucy, I love the humor in your book, especially when you write brothers. Knox and Nash and the Pierce brothers make me smile and laugh. How do you do that? It brings so much joy. So that's a great transition to us talking about humor and adding humor to your stories. Does it make it easier when there are siblings involved, like, and there's a family dynamic, or?
To me, I think one of my favorite ways to weave in humor is through banter. My brother and sister are two of the funniest people I know. So our conversations are at all times ridiculous. Whenever someone new is in the room with the three of us, they're just at a loss for words because there's three of us and we're hilarious and very intense. So I love to recreate that dynamic in fiction. I like doing it with siblings, but I also really love pitting enemies against each other. So every time they're on the page together, they're fighting about something, but they're fighting in a very funny way. It keeps me entertained when I'm writing it.
So how do you, I mean, and maybe this is hard for you to describe your process, but like, how would I make a fight funny? Like, like, are they griping at each other good naturedly, or?
Sometimes not. I think the insults, if you get creative with the insults, in The Dead Guy Next Door, I call it like an anti-bromance. So the hero, Nick, is really grumpy and he does not know how to have healthy relationships with other men. So there are two other male characters in the story that every time he's in a scene with them, they are constantly just bickering. So his insults, the one guy that he really doesn't like is very, very tall and very muscular. And he says something like, don't make me go get a step stool, climb up it and slap you across the face. I have a lot of fun coming up with these insults that just fly back and forth, just like I guess siblings would do.
So do you ever, like, you're writing and you stop and think, like, what would be a great insult?
Oh
And
my
then,
God. Yes.
yeah.
I actually, one of the things that I write in sprints. So I will set a timer and the only thing I'm allowed to do is write. So if I can't come up with something within like 10, 20 seconds, I leave a note for myself and I'm like, insert funny insult about this, or, that's my game plan. So then it becomes future Lucy's problem. But usually future Lucy is, less stressed about word count and more creative. So then I
Yeah,
can.
that it takes the pressure off once in your books. So let's talk about a typical Lucy Score book. Your books are long, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but your books are very meaty. Yeah. So typically you're at like 150,000, 100 and what is your normal?
Yeah. 150,000 is a fair estimate. I was gonna say the Things We Left Behind was 172. That was my most recent one, and I was like, I cannot write another book that long. And now the one I'm working on is like, we were just talking before we went live. This one's shaping up
to be a meaty.
It's real. I'm gonna guess this one will be around 160,000 words.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. But you're in, for anyone watching who hasn't read Lucy before, a great book to start is Dead Guy Next Door, which she just showed the cover. And that even the title itself is funny. I mean, it obviously is serious. And Elaine said your titles look really serious. So obviously there's a dead guy, but already, I mean, you can't say that title without feeling a little bit of, lightheartedness on that. So can you tell us, like, just the elevator pitch of the plot of Dead Guy Next Door?
Sure. My heroine, Riley, is a reluctant psychic. She comes from a long line of female psychics, and she has no interest in her powers. But she has a vision of her next door neighbor being murdered. So she spends the first part of the book trying to prevent this murder, and she is not successful, obviously, by the title. So she lands at the top of the suspect list because she had prior knowledge of this crime. And she is paired up with a handsome, dimpled, tattooed private investigator who is going to help her clear her name.
I love that. And so when you are obviously dealing with serious subject matter, but, how do you balance the humor and, kind of like actual suspenseful moments in that book? Are there ever times where you have to say, like, okay, let me dial this back? Or do your editors ever go, this is not the time for this joke?
My poor editors. I think the Riley Thorne series for me is special because I just let myself go. I let the story be as zany. I let the characters be as wacky as they want to be. I don't pull any punches. I let it be absolute madcap chaos. With my contemporary romances that have some romantic suspense, I do have to dial it back a little bit because I need the reader to feel some of the stress of the danger. But I still inject humor into those storylines because I think for me, I'm a really sensitive intake person. I'm very easily influenced by content. I spent one beach vacation reading the entire Hunger Games series, and it was the most depressing beach vacation I ever had. The books were brilliant. The writing was amazing. I was so depressed. So I think humor is definitely a coping mechanism, as my sister said. And I think I use that to make these storylines safer for readers to experience. So Dead Guy Next Door, there's murders all over the place, but they're funny murders. In my knockout,
what's a funny murder?
Maybe it's somebody who deserved it, or it's usually
like they die in a funny way, or
I mean, or nobody's really sad that they're gone. The murder victim in Dead Guy Next Door, nobody was sad to see him go. He yeah, he was gross and he was not a nice person. So it was okay. And he went in a funny way. And so it's safer for the reader to experience that with the humor mixed in. I promise I really do take things seriously in life, especially, you know, murder and things like that. But on the page, I have a little bit of fun with it.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, we have a few questions. Nikki from Facebook said, "Do you keep a book of insults?"
No, but that would be really smart. I don't know about you guys, but I'm the person who, if I'm ever in a verbal confrontation, I clam up. I don't have any zingers. I don't have any clapbacks. And then that night in the shower, I'll be like, I should have said this. Oh, if I would have said this. So that's on the page is when I can give myself a beat to come up with something good. So a lot of the stuff is things that I wish I would have said in an actual conversation.
Are your characters always like instantly witty, or are there times where like your heroine is tongue-tied and like has that same thing like later where they're like, oh, this is what I should have said, or you know, like I've got nothing.
It's funny you ask, because usually they're very quick-witted, but the heroine I'm working on now, which I will give no details, when she gets anxious, she tells bad your mom jokes, or like she does the somebody's like, stop freaking out, she's like, your mom's freaking out. So that's kind of like a me thing. My instinct is to say something really just dumb and not at all helpful to the
applicable. Another question, this one from YouTube, Deanne said, how do you keep from getting bored with stories that long?
Oh my gosh. See, that's my problem. I'm the opposite of bored. I am fascinated by every aspect of storytelling. So to me, it is never just, how is this guy going to get this girl? It is never even remotely that simple. It is, I want to know every single character's character arc. What do they want? What's keeping them from having it? What do they need? How are they standing in their own way? What are the themes of the book? How are the themes messing with the character arc? How are these two characters keeping each other from what they need? I feel like every character is real to me. So every secondary character I have in my book Bible, I have how they sound, how old are they, what's their job, how many pets do they have, what are their pets' names, what kind of car do they drive. They become these real people to me, and they don't just exist to move the story forward. So I just find storytelling so fascinating that I keep getting deeper and deeper into it, and I think that's what's making my books longer, because I'm learning more about the craft of storytelling all the time. And I keep trying to do better than the last story that I told. So if I'm writing and I'm in a scene that's boring me, there's something wrong with that scene, and I will skip it and move on to something else, or I will ask myself, if I'm bored, the reader is going to be bored. So what purpose is this scene serving, and how do I make it more interesting?
And are you a pantser or are you an outliner?
Both. I start with an outline that I think is really good and detailed, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to nail this. And then I start writing, and that's when the rest of the story reveals it. I will outline for 100,000 word book and end up with 160,000 word book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you are answered in the course of that. Angelia's question, do you keep a character Bible? So you do keep a character Bible, and when you say kind of everything about every character, like, would you have like 40 or 50 characters in this character Bible if you have a series, or is it just the major ones?
I have more. Every character that gets mentioned in the book gets put into the Bible, because part of the reason the Bible exists is to go to the character Bible. I'm not talking about like the Bible.
Right, right.
Clarify in case anybody just
know why the Bible exists. Yes.
Yeah, character Bible. The first column is like a description of their voice for the audio narrators, so they know how the character sounds in my head. But yeah, everybody who gets mentioned, everything I write about them goes into that Bible, because guarantee I'm going to get to chapter 50 and I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to add in the neighbor from chapter 2. What color hair did she have? What kind of car was she driving? So at least that way I have the information available to me rather than having to scroll back and try to figure it out.
And is this Bible like physical, or this is on your computer?
It's on my computer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an Excel spreadsheet. So every book that I write gets one. And then I build, like, if it's a series, the Bible just keeps getting longer and longer.
I love that. Christina says, out of all of the books you've written, which one is your favorite?
I don't know. Which one was your favorite, Christina?
Are they all your favorite at the time you're writing it? Or are you like sick of the book by the time you're done? And
I definitely hit that point with every book, which I think is a good thing, because otherwise I would spend forever just tweaking it and trying to make it perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not a perfectionist in that stance. So I will work on it until I'm happy with the story. And by the time I'm happy with the story, I'm so sick of it, I never want to see it again. So that's how I know. I'm like, okay, this book is ready to go. It's going out. And then by the time like edits come back, then I can enjoy it again. But there is a point every time where I'm like, I cannot stand this book. Are you like that, or
100%? And then normally at that level is when it's time to listen to the audiobook, and I'm like, I can't do it. Like I can't. And then you have to listen to the audiobook multiple times, and I can't do it. Like it's just, I have a mental breakdown around that time where I just sob into the corner.
It is so tough. It is ridiculous.
Yeah. And talking about audiobooks, and you mentioned like you have an area. One thing that I found is hard is sometimes you really have to get a narrator who understands your humor, because a character can say a line in 5 different ways, the same line, and one way is funny and another way is rude, and it all depends, especially if you have kind of snarky humor. So has that been a problem in the past, or do you?
I learned really fast, really early on in my audio production, that I didn't want narrators who just read the story. I wanted voice actors who would perform the story. And that made a huge difference. And I'm a creature of habit, so I work with the same narrators over and over again. And they get me and they get my vibe. I would actually panic over the idea of trying to break in somebody new.
Yeah.
Point. But Lila Winters is amazing. The way she performs my heroine's dialogue is the way it sounds in my head. And I don't have to be like, actually, Lila, it sounds more like that. I'm able to give her the freedom to perform it, because she can add more to it than just, putting her own spin on things. She's really like bringing the characters to life. So I love that about her.
I love that. Yeah, I had a narrator once who made my funny, cute, quirky girl sound like just the most horrible person by the end of the book, because every line was said like with such like venom. It was like, she's a nice person, like she's funny, like you. Yeah, we read the whole thing.
That is so stressful. So stressful.
Mariana said, anything more you can tell us about the 2025 project you mentioned in your newsletter, the Small Town Rom-Com?
It's currently 95,000 words long, and the heroine tells your mom jokes when she's nervous.
It's the one that you're working on right now.
Yeah. I am really protective of the stories when I'm working on them, because I feel like they're all locked up inside me, and I don't want anything interfering with it. And I also, part of me just loves trolling my beautiful readers and making them excited for it. So
and torturing them.
And torturing you guys, because I love you. I love you so much. So of course I'm going to torture you. But another reason why I don't talk much about what I'm working on is because so much changes. Like I was at 80,000 words in this book, and I realized this big, huge thing that I had built my heroine's character arc around wasn't going to work. And I was like, I went out to the kitchen. It was like 7 o'clock at night. And I went out and I'm just standing there like sad hunchback. And Mr. Lucy comes in. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And he's so used to it. He's like, aye. It's okay. So, but he's like, it's part of your process. And it's so true. I envy other authors who have a much more linear process where they know where the story is going from the beginning. And it's like me, every time I get into the middle of the book and then I'm like, oh, that's what it's about. Okay. And I don't know if this is the same for you. I find that when I'm planning things, I overcomplicate them way too much. So when I actually start writing these scenes, then I'm like, okay, she doesn't need 6 motivations for why for why she did this.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we have 4 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, and I have a few questions about writing funny humor. So the first is, do you think that because you seem as if you were born funny, you know what I mean? You're born into a funny family. So do you think an author can become better at writing funny, or do you think a non-funny individual can write humor, or do you think that a lot of what you do is just kind of innately, you think funny, you are funny in real life, and you write a funny scene?
I think it's a combination of both. I think you can be like innately funny, like me, and it just comes naturally, and it's great. But I still have to work at it and hone it to character standards. I think anybody can be taught to do anything. I don't know if you can be taught to do anything like at an expert level. But I do believe that you can study and practice and learn how to become proficient at something. So I think, if you're not a super funny person, I think kind of studying things and people and artists that you find funny or entertaining, I think that will help lead you on the path.
Yeah, and I do think, there's so much we don't know. Like, comedians practice their art. It's not like, and I have a friend who's a stand-up comedian, and I've listened to him like practice and try different things, and then he approaches things from a different way. And it was a really interesting process for me. So when you're looking at like a murder and you're like, oh, I need a funny murder. Like, are there times where you think, oh, he'll pass away this way? And then you think, oh no, it would be better if he passed away this way. How much like editorial tweaking do you do to make your book and your scenes and your situations funnier?
There a lot. I will start out with, this is what needs to happen in the scene, and this is why. What is this scene accomplishing? And usually I don't have a lot of humor in that skeletal outline of the scene. But once I get into it, if I find myself getting a little bored, I'm like, okay, well, I use the secondary characters in the Riley Thorne series all the time. Riley lives with a bunch of elderly people in a crumbling mansion in Harrisburg. And so all of her roommates are over the age of like 75, and they are all creating their own brand of chaos. So you can see this murder just took place, and then Riley accidentally falls down the stairs tackling who she thinks is the murderer. And, it's just, I see Tammy just said, Mrs. Penny. That's right. So you can use the situation, you can use the environment, you can use the other characters to all up the ante on the comedy that's happening. Riley Thorne is not a very funny person. She's like the straight person in this cast of characters who are absolutely hilarious.
Do you think, I think this is a brilliant question. We're going to see if it's a brilliant question, but do you think if you stripped all dialogue from your book, that the funny level, like where would the funny level be? Like if right now you're at 100% funny and you took all the dialogue out of your book, do you think there's still like 20% funny just from like the situations and the instances? Or do you think that a vast majority of your funny does come through dialogue?
For sure. The vast majority is dialogue. There's still funny situations, but I think the humor that people connect with is mostly in the interactions between the characters. So yeah, I think if we took all the dialogue out, it would be like there would be a chuckle here or there, but I it's really the way the characters interact with each other that brings it home.
Yeah, Tammy said consider flatulence when you answer this. So we have funny people watching too. I love this. This is such a fantastic Friday chat. So I love that. So if someone watching is trying to improve and up their humor game, maybe also studying humor. Like when you read other authors, a great way to do it is to read other authors that are good at this. If you read, if you read Megan Quinn, if you read Jana Aston, and pay attention, like specifically, like what is it that made this funny? Why am I smiling? And I think, dialogue is a lot of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can
treat inner also dialogue.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's some of my inner dialogue is funnier than what comes out of the characters' mouths.
I love that. And as a psychic, so she can't hear what other people like, what she sees things.
She's actually like mega psychic, so she can see the future sometimes. She gets messages from people who have passed on, and she can also, if she's not guarding herself, she can also kind of hear what other people are thinking. So other people's inner thoughts are hilarious.
I love that. Yeah, I can't wait. All right, so the next book in this series, this is The Dead Guy Next Door, the Riley Thorne series. The next book in the series comes out July 16th, and it's called Body in the Backyard. And the cover reveal was today. Do you have is it on your phone? You could show
Let me see if I can bring it up.
All right. And so for everyone watching, if you haven't yet dove into this series, now is the perfect time. They are meaty books. You can enjoy them now. And there's Body in the Backyard. Yeah. So it's around the corner, but it's perfect time now to jump into book one, Dead Guy Next Door, and then read through.
Yes, please.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. It was fantastic to have you. And thank you to everyone who joined us. You guys are amazing. Lucy, of course, you're always amazing. And if you're interested in more First Draft Friday chats, we're here every other week. And we'd love to see you at a future chat. This is brought to you by Authors.ai. We have an artificial intelligence called Marlo, who loves to read manuscripts and provide editorial style feedback on them. So if you want to check out Marlo, visit authors.ai. Thank you so much, Lucy. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and best of luck with your work in progress.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.